got to in the last video? It seems like such a long time ago, I can't remember now. Anyway, here we are back again. It's all in pieces. What I've done here is just a temporary rigging to get the movement, to check for the movement that I've got. So yes, it does come down a lot lower, and I think it raises up higher as well. I'll just take it up a little bit more. This is where I'm at the moment, so I've actually got the control. I've got enough screw thread for the movement, so there's ample movement there, and I'll just run it through. Is that all in shot? Pretty much, I think. So let's run him down. Okay, so that's down onto the base. If I move that out of the way, you'll see that this is actually touching the ground. So it's certainly got the depth that's needed. And you can see the position of the ram there, so the movement. So it's definitely going to go that way. This is just on a 3 volt at the moment. So I think that's the way to go, but the other problem is when you've got the other half of the arm together, I'm going to have to cut a window out that's like on the diagonal to allow this arm to move in that radius. So the next step will be also the external of the ram. So this tube is basically, it's too long for the job it's got to do. So let's say we can take it up to there, say. It'd be fine in length that way, but if you bring the ram down you see that it's going to be miles too long that away. So I'm going to have to try and devise a telescopic outer sleeve to accommodate that. So I shall leave this for a minute. I shall devise, I'll probably cut this to length now and put the proper eye back on and work from that, and then that bit's done. I can try that, and then it's just the outer sleeve. So I'll come back once I've done the outer sleeve section of that. Okay, so what we've got is the final resting place of the boom ram. So I'll just put it through its paces a minute. So we've got the upper position, so it's roughly vertical, and we've got plenty of lift on the boom arm now, and I'll just bring it back down again, so it actually comes down as far as touching the ground on the end. So I'll just put this down. Okay, so I've just run that on a single cell battery. It will go a lot faster on a 3-cell battery, but for testing purposes, yeah, it's good to go. So I've had to make a lot of compromises and a lot of modifications on the way to get that far, and I'm just about to do the limit switches now. That's the next thing on the job, and to beef up the ram mounting. I'll just whiz round it a bit to show you what I've done. So I've actually picked up the original 2 ram mounting on the arm, but I'm still using a single motor to drive it, and that gives me because the top mounting is actually mounted inside but using the same pivot, it meant that I could get the movement on the arm that I wanted without the bucket coming around and interfering with the ram. So that was the reason that I ended up taking the whole thing apart and redesigning the whole thing. It makes it a little bit awkward on the reassembly, but the next thing that I've got to do is the limit switches, so I'll just take it apart. Now the best way that I've found to assemble this, withdrawing this spindle here, we can lift the arm up. In fact, I've done it close in. What I should have done was extended it out, so I'll just extend it out a minute, and then it's less turns to unscrew. There we go. Right, okay, so should be able to unscrew that off the top now. That's the only sort of it's a bit tricky to assemble now than what it would be with just external rams, but you know, I thought about gear and belt driving, timing belt wise, and it just got so involved with thrust washers and things like that, so I've come back to that. So that's it in 2 pieces, and I'll just take the screws out and show you the top mount. So now that this is finished, I can bring the dipper arm back in and start rerouting the cables that run down the inside of the arm. So I'll just take those 2 screws out and unscrew this one, and I'll show you what I did with the top bearing. So that'll lift off there, and that should, oh that's right, took the screw out. So I've made up these, which are little cups that sit on the top bearing assembly. So they sit on, and they sit on the recess, sit in the recess on the outside, and bear on the inner section of that screw. So carrying on, let's get the other side out. So it's taken a lot of cutting and shutting and things to actually make it work. There's the one off the other side, so there's 2 of those, and those, that will allow the bearing to swivel and support the weight. So these studs actually screw right the way through and butt up against this metal thing here. So that is that M2 screw screws all the way through and secures this ram rod onto the end of that. So that's screwed, threaded, 3mm from the top of it. So that's that part of it. And I'll have to do a bit of scalloping out on the arm to allow it to pass through on that. So if I put those 2 together, you can see it's a fair size scallop to get around there, but I've got there in the end.